This will be an intermission type video that will try to bring everything up to date that I've collected doing this series, and it will briefly mention where I'm headed next. When I first started, my expectations were a bit low. I had only one fixed point, and that was Marcion, and before Marcion, the evidence becomes highly questionable. So my assumptions going in were that I would probably find a colossal, impenetrable mess, something so blast and unsupported that I wouldn't be able to make much of it. I only had one other potential fixed point, and that relied on Luke and Acts being addressed to Theophilus of Antioch. It seemed plausible, but again, this fixed point could be easily demolished with external evidence. Even internal evidence had the potential to wipe this point out, so it was very tenuous. In order to explore the plausibility of Luke's late authorship, I needed to explore the first potential mentions of Luke and see if they added up. Basically, if Justin Martyr had Luke, my second fixed point would go up in flames. However, after going through all of Justin Martyr, it became clear that this author did not have Luke. He had an account consistent with the Gospel of James. He had Matthew, and he had Marcion. And the Gospel of James account forced an inconsistency with Luke. This eliminated Luke in favor of Marcion. So with no further external opposition to my Luke fixed point, I granted Matthew as a potential third fixed point. However, Matthew and Mark were highly problematic because all I had was a late date. As far as I knew, these texts could have been written in 71. The external sources on Mark and Matthew are highly questionable. There is a quote from assumably Papias. Irenaeus writes that Papias died in 155, yet Eusebius dates him to far earlier. Obviously, they both could be lying. However, Irenaeus, being far closer to this Papias person, probably knows better. Nevertheless, I didn't see anything in Papias worth worrying about. There is also something about Papias that appears possibly even forged. I simply had no confidence in this account or its dates. This meant that assuming Justin Martyr was dated correctly, he would have the first verifiable mention of Matthew and potentially Mark. And this is all fine and good, but I had to see if these dates were even possible textually. Would it even be possible for Matthew or Mark to follow Marcion? After doing a lot of cross-referencing, noting inconsistencies, docetism, similarities, and differences, it became crystal clear that Mark and Matthew could easily follow Marcion. In fact, it made all kinds of sense. The Mark and Matthew emphasis on John the Baptist simply doesn't work going the other way. For Mark to have priority, Marcion had to dump some John the Baptist references and pump up Herod. This makes no sense at all. So that's roughly where I'm at now. I do not have verifiability on Peter's position. Priority seems possible, but that's not a given. I do have evidence on the Gospel of James, priority over Luke and likely Matthew. That comes from Justin Martyr. I haven't given the whole story on that, but basically Justin Martyr says the reference to Jesus being born in a cave is highly problematic. During his time, Christians are being accused of being related to Mithraism. Justin says this is because of the cave reference, the same cave reference that is found in the Gospel of James. So James or something very similar is here, but unless I could find external support for some kind of dating, Peter and James may rely more on internal support. I don't like that at all. But again, the sources before 140 are almost worthless. So little is traceable before this date, I'll just have to go with whatever I can find. On the horizon is John. John will be extremely problematic, and again, I see no reason why I should get anything out of John. I have one contact point with orthodoxy that I'll mention in my next video. However, John is likely going to be a serious problem, and there may be nothing quick about breaking him down. If John looks like a quagmire, I'll hop to other texts and brush John aside until I get further evidence. Maybe that will all change, but that's the way I'm feeling about it now. I'll keep my expectations low and simply be surprised if anything comes out of John.